So we've got another Ford anniversary for you here. Probably another of those anniversaries that's just sort of slipped under the radar a bit, but it's 50 years since Ford came out with the Mk2 Capri back in 1974. What we've got here is really quite a rare example of the Mk2 actually. It's 1600 GT, so it's a Pinto 1600, where the regular ones were just regular 1600s were just a crossflow. We've got a twin choke Weber, so we've got 88 horsepower or so instead of the 82 of the regular 1600. So yeah, you know, something a little bit different, and we've got a whole track at our disposal here at Mallory Park. So yeah, let's see what it's like after 50 years. It's a funny car, the Capri, and it's a really British institution. It may have been made in Germany for most of its life, but actually, towards the end of its life, they ended production in Cologne. They carried on going for a few years purely for right-hand drive for the British market. So that's how popular the Capri is in Britain. Everyone knows someone who had a Capri, don't they? I remember when I was at school, dads had them as family cars, and they seem quite small now actually, but they are a full four-seater. Of course, you know, they're really based on the Cortina, aren't they? And you know, as a classic today, if you want a practical car that, you know, you can get the family in and you can use for everyday life if you want to, you know, Capri isn't a bad shout. I think the Capri is at its best in the Mark 1 and Mark 2 guises. I was driving a Mark 1 last week, a V4, and that seems entirely appropriate for the times, and actually the Mark 2 does as well. You can just see where it's sat in the market. It's a little bit more sporting than a Cortina, you know, the fastback style still looked pretty exotic, and it just sort of told the world that you were someone who didn't have to quite settle for a four-door family car or an estate just yet, you know. And you can just get that vibe coming back in through this car. It's the late 70s example we've got here. And you know, it takes me back to a different time when, you know, not everybody had your dad's four-door saloon car. They're easy to drive, the Capri, you know, in an era, certainly even by the late 70s, you know, sort of out-and-out performance cars were still sort of a tricky beast. You know, you could still buy, you know, the old Triumph TR6s into the early 70s, and they were, you know, really old school. And of course, even things like Lotuses were, you know, quite hard work to drive, you know, in that era. So if you wanted a fast car, you know, you had to be committed to it, whereas actually the Capri, you know, it was a stylish car and, you know, was regarded as a performance car in its more powerful models. It's actually just an easy car to drive. It's as easy as Cortina, really, and, you know, that's no surprise. This one shows you exactly what the Capri was about, and actually now it's warmed up a little bit and we've done a couple of laps. It just feels quite happy, you know. You can see why people used to just happily sit on the motorway in them. From the dashboard forwards, you know, you could be in a Cortina, really, I guess. You've got everything you need here, and it is comfortable. It's a world away from something like an MGB, and you've got to remember, you know, the time this car was made, you could still buy an MGB GT, which is coupe, obviously, brand new. And, you know, you drive this Capri, and you contrast it to an MGB, it's like chalk and cheese. I mean, the MGB would seem like it's out of the ark, it really would. This has quite a modern feel to it. I know you've got leaf spring rear and strut front, but, you know, that was pretty much standard fare for a Ford of that era. But it actually acquits itself pretty well. We've got a speed limit today at Mallory, so we can't go pushing it too hard. But actually, you know, I mean, I've driven so many Capris so sideways, often unintentionally. You know, you could have the back end out around every corner here, but actually driving sedately here, it feels perfectly well composed, and, you know, it's actually quite an easy car to drive fast. This one feels really quite planted. I've driven a few Capris that are all over the place. This one feels like the axle is actually connected to the body shell properly. The Capri Mark II sat in a funny place in the market, really, when it was current, because of course you still did have those sort of MGB style cars that, you know, were a hangover from a previous era, really. But you did have that new wave of sort of twin cam front wheel drive coupes, and, you know, things were starting to change, and, you know, it wouldn't be long really before the Capri was outclassed. But, you know, in the late 70s when this one was made, it was perfect for the market. And in GT guys here, you know, with the 88 horsepower, has got just that little bit of extra go, you know, and it's fast enough to be fun. You forget how good Ford actually were at producing cars, you know, for mass appeal, really, back in the 70s. But it's got a lovely light gear shift, the steering's light, visibility is good. Actually, it's a really easy car to drive, and, you know, Ford have always been good at that sort of thing, just what people want in a car. It's as good for its day as a Focus is now. What I really need, though, is a pile of cardboard boxes. Why? Well, younger viewers won't get that dated reference, will they? But the Mark II was the car that appeared in the Professionals and the Sweeney and things like that. And this particular one has got just the best feature. If you can hear me. I love that. It's an interesting car, this one, this particular example. It's basically well, not so much a barn find, but a heated garage find. I've just been chatting to the owner, and he said it was in a garage for about 30 odd years before he got it out just a couple of years ago, and it's all original. It's not very often you drive an all original Capri, and that's the difference. It feels like it's all up together. It hasn't all been taken apart and welded together slightly wonkily, and it's all of a piece, and it's actually quite an interesting one to drive because it shows you how the Capri should be. Going to try that horn again, just because I can. I'm never going to get tired of that. Just coming into the pits here now. Where's that pile of boxes? Well, that was an interesting day. I didn't think I'd be driving 2 Capris in 1 week. I didn't think I'd be driving an original Mark II 1600 GT, well, pretty much ever. So, yeah, interesting. Just a little bit of a reminder of, how good Ford really can be on a good day. The contrast between this and an MGB GT. Well, chalk and cheese, and you can see why Ford cleaned up with the Capri, can't you, really?